Welcome into another episode of my Dynasty Fantasy Football YouTube. Today I'm looking at Dynasty buys, specifically buys because of the NFL draft. As always, make sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Let's go. So, the first player, Odunze. I think this is the most obvious one, but obvious doesn't mean bad. A lot of people are fading Odunze, I think, which is a mistake. Odunze was an elite prospect, solid draft capital, decent rookie year. Those types of players tend to improve in year 2. Now, let's take a look at what Odunze did in his rookie year. He played all 17 games. Probably shouldn't have. There were a couple of injuries. I actually think we'd like Odunze a little bit better if he had just taken the time to get fully healthy, kind of similar to JSN's rookie year, played through that injury. We probably would have liked him better if he didn't play through the injury and just looked better on a per game basis. 54 catches, 734 yards, 3 touchdowns, 101 targets, which is actually a lot. 3.2 catches and 43.2 yards a game. It's not a bad rookie season. He crossed 100 targets. He crossed 700 yards. Expectations are high for rookie wide receivers now, but really the big question is here. The targets are fine. The yardage is okay. It's who to blame for the low catch rate. If you think it's Odunze's fault that the catch rate was low, then fade him. It's probably not, though. It's probably on Caleb Williams. Now, Odunze put up these numbers despite DJ Moore and Keenan Allen having 261 targets between them. It's a lot of target competition. Now, I'm not a big believer in target competition, but we're going to get to why I'm mentioning this in a second. Now, why do I have Odunze as a dynasty buy? So, this too many mouths to feed argument, I generally don't buy it, right? But even if you did, let's say you did buy it. The Bears replaced Keenan Allen, who had 121 targets, with rookie Luther Burden and Colston Loveland. Is that more competition? Yes. Is it wildly different? No, it's not wildly different. It's not that much more. So I'm not buying into that argument. I get the lack of belief in Caleb Williams, but he did produce 541 passing yards in year 1. It's not like he didn't throw. Ben Johnson is a huge coaching upgrade. I do think things will get better. So I'm not going to say that Caleb Williams is like Anthony Richardson, someone who I'm terrified of in the short term. Now, Odunze was an elite prospect. I think people forget how good of a prospect he really was. In his final year at Washington, he had 92 catches, 1,640 yards, and 13 touchdowns, 109.3 yards a game. He had 75 catches, 1,145 yards, and 7 touchdowns in 2022. He was an elite prospect. Not very good, elite. He had a pure green reception perception route chart entering the NFL, which a lot of people were talking about at the time. The only reason people don't remember this is he was in the one class that had 2 wide receivers that were more elite than him. To me, it is very clear that in the 2022, 2023, or 2025 rookie class, Odunze would have been the wide receiver 1 in all of those classes, including this one, where he was better wide receiver prospect than either Teteroa McMillan or Travis Hunter. It's not even that close for me. Odunze was significantly better as a prospect than any of the players in those classes were as prospects. Now, of course, as you are as a prospect doesn't guarantee that you're going to be that in the NFL, but he wasn't bad. So because he wasn't bad as a rookie, he's pretty easy to buy because people are disappointed. You can get him for Quinshon Judkins. I mean, which of these players is more likely to be a high-end dynasty asset? It's obviously Odunze. Quinshon Judkins, I like him, but he's not going to be a high-end dynasty asset ever. The next one, even more ridiculous, Odunze and Dylan Sampson for Tyrone Tracy and Brandon Ayuk. I mean, what are we doing here? Like, what is this? This is crazy to me. I'd much rather have Odunze. And then the last one, this is probably the most fair of the 3. Odunze and 26 first for Marvin Harrison Jr., another kind of disappointing player. I think if I had to choose, I would choose Odunze and a first over Marvin Harrison Jr., but not totally crazy. I think this could happen in some leagues. So check the market for Odunze. There were more ridiculous offers I didn't put on here. So he could be sold even lower than what I've been talking about here. So the next player, Brian Thomas. Now, I think everyone knows that I think that Brian Thomas is elite, but we're still hearing from some uneducated, I'll call them analysts, that think BTJ will be the wide receiver 2 on the Jaguars, which behind Travis Hunter, which is extremely unlikely. Now, Thomas, as a rookie in 17 games, had 87 catches, 1,282 yards, 10 touchdowns, 133 targets, 5.1 catches, and 75.4 yards a game. These are elite numbers. I've done the breakdown in the Patreon of wide receivers with this type of production as rookies. All of them, essentially, are multi-time Pro Bowlers, Hall of Famers, extremely high-end fantasy assets, especially those who are first-round picks. Those are basically all massive successes, no busts, very strong rest of their careers. Thomas averaged 16.7 PPR points a game, 12th among wide receivers. So he was already a wide receiver 1 as a rookie. Imagine if he takes the year 2 step that most wide receivers do. He could be even better than he was as a rookie, where he was already really, really good. Now, I think there are some fears with Travis Hunter that's opening a buying window. I get it. Travis Hunter was taken 2nd overall. I am sorry, but Travis Hunter, the wide receiver, would not have been taken 2nd overall. He's a good, really good wide receiver prospect. He's not even the best wide receiver prospect in recent memory. There were 3 better ones last year. I'm telling you. Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors, and Rome Odunze were better wide receiver prospects than Travis Hunter. Travis Hunter was taken 2nd overall for the opportunity to have a dual starter in one player. That is unique. That is why he was taken 2nd overall, not just because he's that good as a wide receiver. Very good, but not that level. Now, no prospect, and I mean no prospect. It's not possible to be good enough to project them over a receiver with BTJ's year 1 numbers actually playing in the NFL. You can't be that good as a prospect to be better projected than someone who is essentially a lock to be a very, very successful NFL wide receiver. So, of course, I'm going to project Brian Thomas to be better than Travis Hunter. It would be almost impossible not to do so. Now, it's true that BTJ was better with Mac Jones. That's true. But he was also better in the second half of the season, which is typical for a rookie wide receiver. So, do we think that Mac Jones really made Brian Thomas better, or that Brian Thomas became better as the season went on, and that just happened to be the time that Mac Jones was playing? I think it's more likely that it's that. And I'm certainly not buying that the return of Trevor Lawrence, who is a better quarterback than Mac Jones, will hurt Brian Thomas Jr. That's a silly narrative. Now, how do you buy Brian Thomas? Of course, he won't come cheap. What I'm saying is I would take a discount if a discount is offered. So here are 3 deals that I felt were a discount. Number 1, buy Brian Thomas for Teteroa McMillan, Jaden Higgins, and Xavier Legette. This is a lot of maybe. Maybe these are good. Brian Thomas is already elite. I would much rather have Brian Thomas, who is still not even 23, over these guys who are not, no guarantees here. So this is an easy Brian Thomas. That one's not close. The second, Brian Thomas for Garrett Wilson in 204. Okay, this one's a little closer. Brian Thomas is a better player than Garrett Wilson. I think that's pretty clear. Brian Thomas in year 1, I think, was better than anything we've seen from Garrett Wilson. So if they said Garrett Wilson in a first, okay, maybe now you're talking. Garrett Wilson 204, that's not enough. I'd rather just take Brian Thomas. The 204 is not going to excite me enough in this class. And then the last, this one is actually the most ridiculous. Brian Thomas in 2 seconds for 26 first and 27 first. How 2 seconds were added here is ridiculous to me. Brian Thomas is still at the point of a player, even in Superflex, which this is, all the trades are 12-team Superflex. Still at the point for me, Brian Thomas is worth more than 2 future firsts. Forget with 2 seconds added, right? I mean, that is ridiculous. So I would easily take Brian Thomas here. This one is not close, and to me is the most ridiculous of the 3. So if you can get an offer like this, I would be buying Brian Thomas so fast. I couldn't even believe it. So take a look, see if the Brian Thomas manager in your league is concerned about Travis Hunter, because I'm not concerned, and see if there's a buying window. Now, if you like my YouTube content, you should sign up for the Patreon. I'm offering a 50% discount off your first month at all tiers using code TYLER, YT. You can get all of my rankings, access to Discord, all my write-ups. I'm going to be doing a write-up for all 32 teams over the next month and a half or so. So that will only be available to patrons. Direct message fantasy advice. It's what the Patreon was founded on. We work on your Dynasty team in DMs to help you make trades. I do it for redraft too during the season, but for now, focusing on Dynasty. And the ability to ask in advance questions for YouTube videos. You'll see that at the end of every video, including this one. Now, tiers begin at just $5 a month. $250 with the discount. If you want to know more about Patreon, check out my why you should join the Patreon videos on the channel. They're under Patreon promos on the homepage. And, I'll probably be doing another one maybe in a couple of weeks. So again, overall, I want to emphasize the discount code. I'm confident in the product. 50% off using the code TylerYT at checkout. Patreon.com/fantasy advice. If you click on that link, any tier, when you go to checkout, there's going to be a spot to type in the discount code. Type in code TylerYT. You will get 50% off your first month at any tier. With that said, I'll move into my final Dynasty buy. So my final Dynasty buy is Josh Downs. And I think if Downs won another team, he'd get a lot of attention. And he's been really, really good as an NFL player, but he doesn't get a lot of credit because the Colts passing attack is so yucky or unwanted with Anthony Richardson. So Downs in 2024, 14 games, 72 catches, 803 yards, 5 touchdowns, 107 targets, 5.1 catches, and 57.4 yards a game. So he produced a lot more than Odunze, who we talked about earlier in this video, despite playing 3 fewer games. He was great despite an early season injury. Came in and was immediately the Colts wide receiver 1, very clearly. Did that despite Michael Pittman and Alec Pierce also producing and kind of a rough passing offense. So Downs averaged 13.1 PPR points a game, 31st among wide receivers, which was actually pretty good, leveling up from his rookie year, which was actually also pretty good. Now, why do I have Josh Downs as a Dynasty buy? Few reasons. Obviously, the value depression from the Colts offense. We know that Anthony Richardson is bad, but it cannot be as bad as it was in 2024, or he'll be benched for Daniel Jones. And even though Jones isn't great, we saw that there was this graphic on Twitter today that Jones's career numbers are very similar to Trevor Lawrence, who we're all saying is going to support fantasy wide receivers. Daniel Jones has supported fantasy wide receivers at times in the past. He's not like what Anthony Richardson was. So maybe it would at least be acceptable, kind of like Gardner Minshew was a couple years back for the Colts. Now, Downs had a 29.6% target rate in 2024, 6th among wide receivers. So let's think about what that means. 29.6% of the time he was there on the field, he was targeted. That is, like it shows, 6th among wide receivers. So what does this have to do with Tyler Warren? I like Tyler Warren. Good rookie tight end prospect. Going to be their starter immediately. I fully think he was worthy of where he was picked. But as a rookie tight end, or really any tight end, going to displace a wide receiver who earned targets at this type of rate? The answer is no. Wide receivers are typically the main plan of passing attacks. We see even TJ Hawkinson, very good tight end, doesn't displace wide receivers. George Kittle even, really good. But when the wide receivers were there and healthy and like at their peak, Ayuk and Debo at their peak, they were more relied on the offense than George Kittle was. So it's possible that Tyler Warren is Brock Bowers. That's possible. But the odds are heavily stacked against that. So I'm not fading this very highly targeted wide receiver because a tight end went there. Doesn't make sense to me. So now Downs just turned 24 years old in August. Now, for someone like Michael Pittman, it's too late. Michael Pittman's going to turn 28 this year. It's probably not going to be great this year. It's too late. We can't wait for Michael Pittman. By the time Michael Pittman gets to the situation that's good, Michael Pittman could be 30. You can't wait that long. But Josh Downs just turned 24. So we still have time for Josh Downs to be a valuable wide receiver. Usually, we would love a player like this. Young. He had 3rd-round draft capital is not nothing. Productive. Proven target earner, both in terms of raw targets and target rate. We would love this type of player, typically. Right? I mean, we would. But we don't. We don't love him. Because people just say Colts, they don't want that. No Colts for me. Now, how do we buy Josh Downs? Now, this first one maybe is a little ridiculous. But it was in there. Buy Josh Downs for Torrey Horton. It's a joke, right? I mean, this is not serious suggestion, but it was in the trade database. I wanted to put it on there. The next one, okay, this one I could actually see happening. Josh Downs in 307 for Joe Mixon. To me, obviously, the pick is on the wrong side. I would rather have Josh Downs than Joe Mixon. He's 5 years younger than Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon is, I talked about this in the Patreon on numerous occasions. Joe Mixon is bad. I mean, flat out has been bad his entire career. somehow still gets the volume. He's the one bad workhorse survivor of this type of, archetype. They all die out, except he's the one that survived. Eventually, his luck is going to run out. But regardless, I'd rather have Josh Downs. And in this last one, 112 for Josh Downs and 205. I mean, no matter who's on the clock at 112, maybe I'd slightly prefer that player to Josh Downs, but I'd certainly rather have 2 players, Josh Downs and 205 over 112. That's not really a question for me. So if these are the types of offers you can buy Josh Downs for, I'm all in on him as a dynasty buy. And he's probably actually one of my biggest dynasty buys in all of Dynasty right now. So now we'll do the Patreon questions and then we'll wrap up the show. What do you think the biggest issue in Dynasty leagues is at the moment? And what do you think is the biggest issue in the Dynasty content sphere these days? Well, the biggest issue in Dynasty leagues is people signing up and going for 1 year and then bailing. That is the biggest issue. That is by far the biggest issue. There's not even close. And the way to solve that is if you do a Dynasty startup, you must require paying for 2 years at the beginning. You should not be able to join a Dynasty startup. Dynasty, that implies a multi-year commitment if you do not pay 2 years upfront. Period. End of story. No discussion. That is the biggest issue in Dynasty leagues. That's an easy question. The biggest issue in the Dynasty content sphere, I just think that the Dynasty content is mostly bad. At the end of the day, most people take the approach of people will never pay for my content. So they'll never pay for it. So what that means is I have to say the only revenue I'm going to get is through YouTube views, ad money, or whatever. So I have to say the most ridiculous things possible to up the view time, up the click-through rate, up whatever. Say the most ridiculous things possible. I don't care if I believe it. I don't care if it's true. Whatever. That's what people are going for because the paid market is really, really slim. Now, I've gone the other direction. I typically find that people say that I'm a little boring or, don't say crazy things or whatever. I take those as compliments. But, I've bet on, okay, I'm going to show that I know what I'm talking about. And then people will sign up for my Patreon. I've bet the other direction of trying to be more reasonable and hoping that that leads people to, look at my paid product. So that's kind of what I think is the biggest issue is people saying hot takes that they don't really believe. There's no accountability for it because nobody's paying for that person's content anyway. So, they can say whatever they want. I mean, they have nothing to lose. So that's my take on that. Is the Bucky Irving hype getting out of control at this point? I believe I heard the fantasy footballers talk about this. No, I mean, depends on what's out of control. I mean, if you rank him as a top 5 running back in redraft, yeah, maybe. Top 5 running back in Dynasty, no, for sure not for me. But I think most people have him ranked pretty appropriately. So, no, he was elite as a rookie. I mean, very, very good. I don't put him in the same category as other day 3 running backs who had breakout seasons that were all empty volume, Chase Brown. But yeah, Bucky Irving is very, very good. So in that respect, it depends on how much hype there is. But I do know some people are obsessed with him. So I guess I could see it being out of control. Yeah, I try not to get out of control myself. So it's hard for me to relate to this question, if that makes sense. What would you say to someone who really likes RJ Harvey? I would say that just because the other running backs on the depth chart seem bad doesn't mean that RJ Harvey is going to be as good as you want. Could RJ Harvey be the starter, the clear starter and the clear lead back and still be a disappointment? Yes. And that's something that it's very hard for people's brains. Most people's brains, it's difficult to have a complicated thought going on up there. It's very difficult to think about that. It's so hard to think about that RJ Harvey could be the clear starter and also be a fantasy failure. That is very possible, but that's a very difficult thing for people to think about. So I would just encourage you, rethink your thoughts. Look, there had to be a lead back on the Broncos last year. Did you want to play that player? Not really. So keep all of that in mind would be my sentiments. But I'm not saying I hate him. I'm just saying that it's not as simple as the RJ Harvey stands are making it out to believe. Do you think that Daniel Jones can win the starting job from Anthony Richardson? If so, what effect does this have on the receiving room? So I talked about the effect a little bit earlier. The first part of the question is more interesting. Do I think he can or will win the starting job from Anthony Richardson? I think no, because I think if he does, it's basically Chris Ballard and Shane Steichen just waving the white flag on their jobs and saying, we will be fired. We do not care. We are fired. Give up, whatever. As a Giants fan, I know that Daniel Jones is not good enough to lead that team to playoffs. I'll tell you that right now. So I don't know what that solves. Unless Anthony Richardson is horrific, I think he's going to start week 1. Now, is the leash short? Yes. Could it be like Bryce Young last year, plays 2 games and is yanked? Absolutely. But for Daniel Jones to start week 1, I'm not buying that. I'm really, really not buying that. I think Anthony Richardson is going to get one last chance to show that he's what they drafted. And if he's bad, could be 2-3 games and that plug is pulled. But I do think he's going to get one final chance. Who's a player or players who are high on, but could see a scenario where they disappoint and don't meet their expectations? I mean, Odunze is absolutely one of them, who we talked about earlier in the video. In terms of other players that I'm high on, I mean, to be honest, like with the Lions, for example, it's not really possible for Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameson Williams, and Sam Laporta to all pay off at what they currently cost. It's hard to see that. That's difficult to do. So that's definitely a scenario where there could be someone disappointing. And then, I mean, I want to throw, obviously, Emeka Egbuka out there. I mean, I like Emeka Egbuka, but there is a scenario in which it just doesn't work out. Chris Godwin is completely healthy, and it just doesn't work. I mean, that is absolutely possible. I like him as a prospect, but that doesn't mean he's going to succeed. The reason why I've been raising him in my rankings is because I don't think Godwin is anywhere near being 100%. And I think that's going to be a major factor. But, if that's wrong, then, I might be wrong about Emeka Egbuka. So there's some players I would say that I feel that way about. I think the more interesting side of the question is the other one. The players I'm low on that I could see being wrong. I think that's actually a more interesting question. I might cover that on a future video. Now, if you liked the video, make sure to support the channel by subscribing. And don't forget to hit that notifications bell so you can be notified about all my exciting content as it drops. Of course, if you want my best fantasy football advice, anything really interactive, that goes through the Patreon. Dynasty content year-round, 50% discount at all tiers using code TylerYT. You can click on the link in the top right corner to subscribe and use code TylerYT at checkout. Every sign-up helps support my independent content, namely this YouTube channel. Once again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all later.